Good morning, I'm Nadira Tudor. Hundreds of soldiers have been evacuated from a besieged steel works in Mariupol. Ukraine's military said it was still working to bring out all remaining troops from the Azov-style steelworks. 53 seriously injured people and 211 soldiers were rescued as part of a prisoner exchange agreement with Russia. The Foreign Secretary, Liz Truss, is expected to announce that she'll rewrite parts of the Brexit deal on Northern Ireland and present them to Parliament. Boris Johnson says his government doesn't want to scrap the Northern Ireland Protocol altogether, as they think it can be fixed. Good morning, I'm Nadira Tudor. The US Supreme Court looks set to overturn the right for women to have an abortion, according to a draft decision leaked to the website Politico. Protesters gathered outside the court in Washington, D.C. after the deeply controversial decision was revealed in an unprecedented leak. California's Governor Gavin Newsom has already confirmed lawmakers are proposing to enshrine the right to choose into the state's constitution. Those restrictions still in place, though, because there are, aren't there, Gilbert, with the fully vaccination required and the forms and the PCR testing, all the rest of it. Can there be a full recovery for the industry?
It's going to be a crawl then walk scenario, really. Just, you know, when countries signal that they're going to open, people get excited. When countries open, they get a little bit more excited. But whether that translates into actual visitors is an entirely different proposition.
Moscow studio with me, Nadira Tudor. Welcome to the programme. Iran, still convinced by Mr. Pompeo's video. Perhaps the lesson to be learned, investigation before action, as opposed to the other way around. Shipbuilding was booming here back in the day, in the mid-19th century. A full amnesty for militants and defectors wishing to denounce a life with rebel groups involved in the war in Syria. I'm having to walk with the crowds here. What I can say is that the demonstrations here started off in the centre of London and they're walking around behind me. Jacqueline, do we know what Kushner has to say to the lawmakers?
Well, his questioning is being conducted behind closed doors.
For some watching the election, the biggest intrigue was not about who won, but rather about how many votes the Communist Party candidate Pavel Grudinin would secure. Positive discrimination is not a new concept, but once again, it's sowing discord. This time, the body preserving the English heritage is at the centre of the dispute. There's certainly been an air of anticipation amongst the hundreds of journalists who have travelled from all over the world to be here in Astana for the talks that are taking place in the Hotel Rixos. The OPEC group of the world's leading oil producers has wrapped up in St. Petersburg. RT's Roman Kostrov has been following the event. Historic England introduced the scheme as the government tasked them with improving the ethnic makeup of their workforce. This knife crime epidemic seems to be spiralling. What do you think is driving it?
I think society's changing, and I think it's changing at a rapid pace.
I'm going to come back to the conditions that Martin's living in now and the fact that he was denied bail even to attend his father's funeral.
It's really hard to see him miss his father's funeral.
The police did not specify exactly which fragments of the BBC film they believe misrepresented their response on the night of that tragedy. Well, a lot of anticipation, I must say, as we waited for the results from this cabinet meeting, and actually we were expecting a major decision to be made, the possibility of military action, but what we've ended up with is a rather vague statement. It's warning of structural racism. Can you explain what that means?
It's basically looking at the policies, procedures...
Is Britain's Brexit saga spiralling out of control? We've decided to press the pause button and get some perspective on how justified the apparent mass hysteria is from both Leavers and Remainers. What struck me, as I've spoken to a number of residents who live here at the Chalcott's estate in Camden, is the fear in their eyes at the thought that they too could have lost their lives. And now they're after clarification from the government as to what's going to happen next to resolve those problems and action to be taken. Nadira Tudor, RT.